Welcome to the What's Your Weird Story podcast.
Everyone has at least one good story.
And some of us have stories that are just to the left of normal.
We're interested in the ones that push the boundaries of what we can perceive.
Stories that defy explanations.
Stories with an air of mystery.
Stories we might not share
for fear of being thought of differently.
But don't worry, we're all friends here. So, what's your weird story?
Hello, Weirdsville. Welcome to the What's Your Weird Story podcast. I am your host, Barry Johnston, and with me, as always, my best friend, Adam Beebe. How are you, Adam?
I am doing all right, all things considered. How about yourself, my friend?
Doing well, slightly caffeinated, probably need a little bit more, but I'm feeling pretty good, man. I got on this kick yesterday. I was watching a bunch of crazy YouTube stuff, and then that led me over to, I started, we had talked before about the Unsolved Mysteries Netflix series that's coming out, and I finally finished that, and god dang, there's some good ones on there.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, the one that really, of course, captured my interest was the UFO story, which was, if you guys haven't watched it yet, you should check it out because it's an abduction story that takes place on the East Coast, and I've never heard it before. Not that I'm the guy that knows all UFO type stories or abduction stories, because I don't. But it was a story that you would think would have much more coverage than what it does. Golly, it was fascinating, man. And it seemed like, it was legitimate.
It definitely had a lot of legitimacy to it. Sorry, I don't know what happened with my mouth there. But it was a mass abduction, which you don't hear a lot about.
Yeah.
But this is a mass abduction. I think it was like back in the 60s.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of little kids that got taken up.
Right.
And it was in Massachusetts in 1969. It was a mass UFO abduction, and it was in Berkshire, Massachusetts.
Yeah. And you don't hear a lot of those types of stories. And I thought the most compelling thing about it was the witnesses themselves, not necessarily the people that even got abducted, but the folks that witnessed. Like there was one lady that saw one of her friends get pulled into the UFO, and she was outside and had seen him get, basically he disappeared. He was running in place. I don't want to give too much away, but then disappeared. And I don't know. It's just it's timely. They did touch upon the Navy tapes that had come out, and then of course, with all the stuff that's come out since then, it's just more, more stories that are going to get more coverage that we probably weren't very privy to. And I think a lot of people probably kept it to themselves. They talked a lot about that. Why would we want to come out and talk about this? Because it was a small town, and there was a bunch of small towns around there that were, people saw it, and not even the local police got that much information on this stuff because I think a lot of it was just sort of poo-pooed, and it was just sort of shoved over, and people just thought, it's a bunch of crazy people out there. So,
Yep.
But it was cool. So,
yeah, worth checking out for sure. All of those are, most, like we said previously, most of them are kind of murder mystery kind of things, except for that one, which was, still all around really well done.
Yeah, great stuff.
And also check out the Hellier series. Both those two seasons on Amazon Prime, and those are really good. And do a lot. If you like this kind of stuff that we normally talk about, you definitely want to check it out because it's got it all.
It's got everything.
It's a documentary series, And, it's got every kind of thing, from UFOs to ghosts to Bigfoot to goblins. That's what it all starts off as, about goblins, and to magic to everything. I mean, it literally has it all.
Yeah.
So, and then I think they're working on the third series as well. So
it's got to go somewhere, because we were talking. You sent me a text before. You're like, man, you got to check this series out, right? And I was like, okay. And that kind of, I've got a list of stuff to go through, and I was on my list. And then my wife was like, you need to watch that. So I started watching it, and I made it through the first 2 seasons, which is 5. They're each 5 episodes, and
no, I think the first one's 5 or 6, and the second one's like 10. Either way, it doesn't matter. I mean,
whatever it is. But I made it through it like fairly quickly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I just got sucked into it,
Yeah, dude. So I did. I did it in 2 days.
Yeah.
I did like most of it in I got 3 days. I take that back. I did most of season 1 in or half of season 1 in one night, then half of the next night, and then the next day I had where I had off, so I watched all 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Late to the night, and I stayed up way late into the night.
Right.
Both times.
Yeah.
Well, 3 times. Really, watching this stuff, but very compelling, very well done as far as documentary style. It's fun. It's got a lot of strangeness. It's got stuff that you might be dismissive of. It just kind of depends on your own personal stance on a lot of this stuff.
Right.
Because we know that everybody's got different varying opinions in this field, because we don't have precise sciences,
right,
and we don't have precise measurements and all that stuff, because this is everything that's outside of that bit of perception. So
yeah, a lot of rabbit holes to go down, that's for sure.
Yeah, but definitely worth checking out. So
yeah. Well, speaking of fun, we have a fun guest. I mean, this is one of the most, I think, the funnest interview that we did, just because it's so outside of the norm of what we usually talk about, and it was incredibly educational.
Yes, it was indeed. Our guest today is yet another member of our favorite freak show family, the Cutthroat Freak Show. Today we have Wendy, aka Queen Monkey, and she's got some really, it's almost a lecture, or I guess this is actually kind of more interview style than anything we've done, like you said. But she is a body piercer, body modifier, piercing artist, and then she's also a burlesque performer who incorporates the piercing into her own show. So
really,
we learned a lot.
We did. Yeah, it's really fun. It's a really great time. And so let's get to Queen Monkey. Queen Monkey, what is your weird story?
Hello. I have a plethora of weird stories, but the first one that always comes to mind as a piercer of 23 years in North Carolina, my favorite was the 93-year-old gentleman who came into the studio trying to get me to actually pierce his actual testicle, not the scrotum, not the sac, things that I've done many times in the past. The actual testy itself. Wanted me to take a 10-gauge needle and just pierce right through it so we'd have a barbell going straight through it.
Oh, my.
And I'm trying to explain to this gentleman that was most likely going to destroy the function.
That was going to what?
Yeah, it's going to make it kind of not work as properly as it should. It's going to be detrimental to manhood. He then tried to explain to me that it'll be fine because he's already had the head removed completely.
Oh my gosh.
So me being as big as I am, I was like, let me see.
Well, you kind of have to at that point.
We've already had this lengthy conversation about what he's asking for won't work, and I pretty much put the proposal out there, let me see, and then I'll go ahead and do this. We'll see what happens. That's when the backtracking begins.
Interesting.
Oh, my.
Me also trying to explain to him that if I do this procedure on him he's requesting, I'm going to see it anyway. Yeah. So just let me see it. So that was the first time I had someone come in trying to mess with the weird people or the tattooed people or that type of thing, thinking he was going to freak me out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I specialize in genitals. Yeah. On any, male, female anatomy. I got you.
This guy, you said he was 93?
93.
Oh my God.
He ended up being a client after that for a while. So I did do some genital piercings on him. He did not have the head of his dick removed, anything like that. Right, I know, yeah. Yeah.
Still, at 93, like, that's a long time to go without your dick being pierced. Like, why? Like, why? Why at 93? Did you ever get that out of them? Why?
Actually, a lot of my clients, as far as older male Southern type gentlemen, because of where I'm at, it's not an uncommon request to get genital piercings once they get to a certain age. Typically, it's after their spouse has passed away.
Okay.
Typically, it's a kink or a fetish that they've been into.
Okay.
But either their partner was not into it or they were scared to tell them. So they waited till they passed away to be like, hey, I'm going to get this done.
Wow.
So a lot of them, it's always been a fantasy or a fetish just to have it done.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I was going to say the fact that he didn't show you the head that was removed, he was totally a cock tease.
Pretty much. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
He just wanted to see, I think he just wanted to push that envelope and see what would happen.
Right.
Kind of deal. And then when I didn't get freaked out and got really intrigued, was like, let me see it. Oh, shit. It's like, yeah, you're coming into the wrong establishment to try to freak someone out.
Right, yeah.
Into that. I'm into it.
Yeah, I've had a lot of friends who are both piercers and tattoo artists, and like, you guys are, I mean, obviously you see a lot of humanity physically, so you guys go through a lot and you see a lot, and there's very little to that you haven't seen, or in that very little that to shock you guys or scandalize you, because
absolutely.
And that's everybody that I've known who's in the field. It's totally like that. So that's funny. That's so funny.
It could also go the polar opposite way as well. My favorite clients typically are couples of sorts, trying to spice things up and whatnot. And it's amazing how much humans do not know their own anatomy, and they're terrified to look at their own anatomy.
Huh.
And yeah, they have no idea about their parts. They're just like, I want to get this done. And it's like, do you know where that's at? And they're like, no, I have no idea. Have you ever looked in the mirror? And they're like, no, never, not at all. So I've actually been able to somewhat help people be comfortable with their anatomy, and especially couples, and actually really explore each other and learn things about each other and expand their sexual relationships, which is what I mainly want to do.
That's great.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's needed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know a lot of the in the conservative areas there, like in the South and like where we grew up in Oklahoma, you're just not really taught a lot about your junk. Women will be told more because you've got to, you have to deal with your period and everything. But dudes are just like, it's hard or it's not, and that's about it.
Yeah. Right.
And if you touch it, you'll go blind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My sex talk with my dad was, do we need to have the talk? And I said no, and he said, okay then. That was it.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's more than I got out of my dad.
I mean, man.
Yeah. That's one thing I'm really proud of with the up and coming generations, because sexuality is something that is getting more open, and people talk about it and they're not afraid to talk about it and that type of thing. So a lot of my clientele with genital piercings, because that's mainly what I do, is getting a little bit younger. It's in their mid-20s type of thing. It's not someone that's, older couples that are trying to spice up their life. It's actually people that are exploring themselves, and they actually know what they want and that type of thing. So it makes me really proud when I have these younger clients come in that know exactly what they want to do, and they want it to do an X amount of thing. But they'll ask me, they're like, is this for this, right? And it's like, absolutely. Right. But they actually are a little bit more informed than my generation was, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure because I mean they grew up with access to the internet. They grew up with all the information, and when you have that, you're more well armed. The more information you have, typically, the more armed you are when you if you access it, if you make use of it. That's so. Yeah, that would be. I never really thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because most of us, with my generation, we stumbled along. We found a porno magazine or a Playboy or,
right.
I had an older brother, so,
right.
That's the way you discover things. It's
exactly.
like, oh, okay, all right. Where now it's just
that's exactly
away.
Right. That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, when you think back, it's like I remember my neighbors got a dish, and this dish was, I'm not kidding you, man, it was the size of a house. It was huge. But they could tune into, this was in the 80s, they could tune into the porn channels, and that's how we learned about stuff, man. I mean, we were young. We were 9, 8, 9, 10 years old. And we're like, what is going on here? We had nobody to explain stuff to you. So you're kind of in the dark. And then that leads to, unsafe practices as you get a little older,
right.
Because you're trying to do what you see on film and not knowing that, there's some things that you need to know before you dive in. And, I mean, I think as far as that's concerned, I think it's great, man, so.
Well, Barry, I can remember, and I think, Wendy, you'll find this story a little bit humorous too, but I can remember the exact day when we learned what erections were for, or woodies, as they were called. Right. And so I remember the day we learned about sex. And Jay Whipple, who was one of our mutual friends growing up, it was 4th grade, and we were on the playground, and Jay comes running up to us. He's like, guys, there's probably a group about, 6, 7 of us. He's like, guys, I know what a woody is for. We're all like, what? What do you mean what it's for? It just happens. He's like, no. And he's like, a guy gets a woody, and he puts it in the girl's vagina. And we're like, whoa. Just mind blown. We're just like, we don't even know. Whoa. Yeah. And so then we're, and that's a huge revelation. So then the next day, Jay comes to us. He's like, I've got more to tell. This is hot information. You all need to know this. Not only do boys get woodies, but girls get something called a stumpy. And so for the longest, and I'm not lying about this, for the longest time, for a number of years, I thought that girls had to get, whenever girls got aroused, that somehow there was some kind of stumpy kind of where they would, I guess, I don't know what would happen, but that was supposed to be part of it. So
that's great. That sounds like Jay.
Yeah, right. I think his dad was probably, the one pulling it fast.
That's hilarious.
So have you ever had to pierce a stumpy is my next question.
Well, when I hear you say stumpy, automatically I think about, the clit gets engorged. So it's got to be, is the clit, the stumpy on there?
Yeah.
I would
yes. Typically a vertical hood's going to work the best for the female. For example, as far as location, you've always heard the phrase "little man in a boat." We're piercing the boat, not the man. But the jewelry will have contact with the clitoris. So depending on the situation, if it's oral stimulation, then it's going to rub up against the clitoris. So for someone that's fresh to having it done and it's healed, of course, it's going to kind of feel like two people if you've got the right partner. But I will also say, if you have the right partner, it's not necessary.
Right.
So over time, it's just adornment, and as long as it doesn't get in your way or cause issues with your life, it can be a cute little thing. But most female genital piercings are decorative. There's not much stimulation that's going to come from it. Yeah. Most piercings that's going to cause any type of stimulation is going to be on a male. It's going to be on a penis. So whether you're straight, gay, whatever, that's when the partner's going to have stimulation from it. And it really does depend on the person. It depends on their sexuality, what they're into, and that kind of thing. So that's what I try to find out the most before we do any So it's weird sometimes because you do have to get personal with people and their sex life, because it's like I want to be able to execute what's going to work for them, not just to be like, hey,
right.
I don't see it any different as doing an earlobe, but when it comes to those types of piercing, it is a little different because it's going to affect their lives a little bit more.
Right.
Sure.
It's not like a little hoop or outer helix, you know what I mean? Like when you have an adornment that affects your life and your partner.
Sure.
So, what's the most popular genital piercing for men?
The most common, there's two different ones actually. There's a PA. Let's see. Are you familiar with a PA? I don't know if our audience is.
That's the classic Prince Albert, I believe.
Yeah. So basically, on the underside of the head on a male, basically the head's kind of mushroom shaped. There's a little V and there's a little webbing. And right where that webbing is, we're going to pierce through that tissue into the urethra and out of the urethra. So there's going to be a ring hanging. You can also do a reverse PA, but that typically is uncomfortable for the male.
I could show you. It all sounds uncomfortable to me right at this minute, but yeah, go ahead. So
one of those piercings that looks more impressive than it actually is because it's going through very little actual tissue. It's very, very soft tissue. The main thing is the urethra, and it's going to bleed. So I always tell guys when they get it, you're going to get your first period.
Yeah.
So they're going to bleed for about 3 to 7 days. But you put panty liners in your underwear, no one's going to know it. It's fine. No one has to know your life and that kind of thing.
Right.
But the purpose of the PA is for deeper penetration.
Huh.
So it really depends on the person. Like if I have someone come in that's got length to them, don't get a PA. You might kill your partner.
Right.
But if they have girth, then yeah, go for it. Go for a PA. It's going to feel comfortable.
Huh.
The next one is going to be a frenum, which is the underside of the shaft. This is always a fun one because guys will come in and ask me, they're like, what exactly is that part? What are you piercing when you do a frenum? The principle of it is like a ribbed condom. So you're adding a barbell to the underside of the shaft. So for example, when your shaft itches and you grab that tissue and rub it together to get rid of the itch, that's what I'm piercing.
Okay. Yeah.
And we can do them from the base of the head all the way down to the shaft. And that's when you get a Jacob's ladder.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Right. You can also do what's called a frenum lorum ladder, which the jewelry will go all the way from the shaft all the way down to the scrotum, to the bottom side of the scrotum.
Okay.
I think a friend of mine who was a piercer had something like that. He said he always told me, and of course now this is 20 years ago, so he could have more, but he said he always had like 26 piercings below the waist.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But so every time he walked around, it sounded like he had a pocket full of change. But
yeah, right.
He jingled.
So can you do it?
One of my favorite jokes, I always tell guys like that, it's like if you're looking for like one of those high-end Richie gold digger type ladies, then that's what you do. You put gold in all of those and look for a gold digger.
Right.
So is there what do you call it? Or is this a thing if you do a spiral around the outside of the penis, so it's like a...
Oh, okay, yeah. Basically what you're doing is you're taking a frenum piercing, and this one's always a fun one with guys too, because there's a weird cross there where you're trying to help your client, but you're not trying to get that intimate with them. Mm-hmm. Because what you do is you have a frenum piercing, which is the underside of the shaft, and you can do a captive bead, which is the ring with the bead in the middle, or you can do the circular, which is the ring with the 2 balls on the ends.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But what I need them to do is go home, get hard, take a string, put it all the way around it while it's erect, and then tie it together and make a little knot, get soft, slide it off. So I have a proper diameter.
Okay.
Of how round they are or girth whenever they're hard. So you can take a hoop and put it in the frenum, flip it over the head when you're soft, and as you get erect, we get a ring that's one size too small, and it will feel tight around the shaft of it or the head, wherever the placement of the piercing is at.
Huh.
So when you're having intercourse, it's even tighter.
Hold on, wait. Okay, I think this is interesting. So it's kind of like what you're saying, sort of. I think, is when it's so. It's kind of like I guess kind of like a cock ring, right? Where you're going.
Yes.
I got to make sure my mom doesn't listen to this episode.
So sorry, Kathleen.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom.
So yeah. Okay. So what I was thinking of is if you did it like in a spiral around, kind of like those spiral staircases that go up, and the penis would be the shaft. But what I think you're describing is that you pierce it with a hoop, and then when it's soft, you flip the hoop over, and then when it gets hard, then it's like that's like a cock ring. It goes around the penis. Yeah.
Correct. But if someone has multiples of them, there are custom jewelry makers out there specifying in this genre. So you send them your actual specifications as far as the distance from each piercing that you have, and they can make one piece of jewelry that will spiral completely around the shaft.
Wow.
Depending on how many piercings you have. So if you have, 6 or 8 frenums and measure the distance in between, there's a company that will make a piece of jewelry that will spiral into each one of those and do the same effect, but on the full shaft, not just in one specific spot.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
Man, that's pretty elaborate. That's getting pretty elaborate, man. I had no idea.
I really want people to have really good sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Interesting. So,
yeah.
And I mean, it begs the question: is jerking off a possibility anymore? I mean, I guess, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Once something's healed, do either of you have like an ear piercing?
Yeah, I used to. Yeah, I used to.
Okay, so once that tissue was healed, you could pull on it, you could play with it, like anything would be fine.
Right.
So once the tissue gets nice and healed, the tissue gets tough enough, it gets to where it can acclimate that. It can definitely handle that, absolutely.
Gotcha.
And someone can get more enjoyment just from that piece of jewelry.
Interesting.
I
think it would probably also
pull the jewelry and get satisfaction.
I think it also would probably depend on how vigorously you do it, Barry. I would imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're very aggressive.
Yeah.
You're very aggressive.
Some people are into assertiveness.
That's true.
Right.
That's true. So you can also get there are aids. There's like the Fleshlight.
Oh, right.
Stuff like that.
I've seen those. Yeah.
You could use that. That would make it easier.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting.
So now we're gonna.
Man, I'm learning.
So
here.
maybe now we'll get sponsored by Fleshlight.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yep. Wow.
Okay, so now we know all about the. Well, not all. I'm sure there's quite a bit more that we still need to hear. But what about what about for women? What are the not the bets, but what are the ones that the popular ones for that? Because I know that I know a lot of ours. This is more interview than we've probably ever really done before. We're asking specific questions.
Well, we need an education. We need to set set the ground rules here. What are we talking about?
Extremely educational. So we really appreciate.
Yeah, happy to do it. The most common for females is going to be a hood, typically a vertical hood. I don't recommend a horizontal. A female's anatomy is very vertical. It goes that direction. And if you're going to do it for yourself. I'm not trying to be selfish there or anything, but you want to get stimulus from it. And typically how it works is for a female to have that piercing done. It's a magnet for men. So, or whoever their partner is. As soon as they see that they have a genital piercing, because most females don't tell their partner they have them, they want them to discover it. That's part of the excitement sometimes. But it's a bullseye. They know exactly where to go as far as if someone has any issues with finding the clitoris. So they can do that.
Yeah.
That's there you go.
Good for young men. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Definitely.
Young men need a roadmap.
Yes. Took me years of research. I was in the library for days and weeks at a time. So yeah, that would have helped out.
And every girl's different, so it's what I mean. It's like unless you know, again, going back to our conversation about just not having any knowledge of this kind of stuff when you're growing up, nobody tells you about it. You know what I mean? And girls' bodies are just so much more sophisticated than a man. You know what I mean? With a dude, you know what you got, you know?
Right. You would actually be surprised how many females don't know what they have. I have discovered over the years how many women, there's always girls that are like, oh, I don't masturbate. I wouldn't do that.
Right.
Girls that have been masturbating in the wrong spot. So, they have no idea until I'm like, oh, we're going to pierce this spot. Especially if someone has a very full, thick hood. We're all different on how we're shaped. I have more women come in that are embarrassed about their bodies as far as like their genitals or especially nipple piercings. Before they take their bottoms or tops off, they go, okay, well, mine looks different. Okay, well, everyone's does. You're not alone. It's totally cool.
Well, that's because, unfortunately, that's because it's kind of like, that's kind of shame that we've built into kind of in our culture. And it's, we need to get, we are there again with the young people. There's definitely a bigger push towards body acceptance and less body shaming and all that. So that's fantastic. That's great.
Yeah.
But it's still, something that is, that's a cultural revolution that we're just starting to ride on. So.
Right. But I have a lot of women come in that say have like a fuller, thicker hood, and they haven't gotten stimulation before because you actually have to move their hood out of the way to get to the clitoris. So by putting a piercing there, it's almost like they have become aware of a body part that they have had their whole lives. It's like, no, this is where it's at. This is what you can do with it. And you can do it all by yourself if you want to.
Interesting.
It's a great thing to do,
Right.
And then there's the other end of it, because like I said, typically if I have a female come in wanting a genital piercing, but they don't know what they want, I always have them go for a hood because it's very thin tissue. It does not stay sore very long. It heals very quickly. It's very easy to take care of. So it's very low maintenance. Believe it or not, a hood is a very good starter piercing for any person, as long as they're of age, of course. Right. But other than that, it goes to a further extreme kind of. A lot of women like to do the interlabias because when they're having intercourse, their partner can pull the rings apart and spread them open. So it can be a dominant thing. It can be a visual thing, all that stuff. Peering deeper into your partner, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah. Other than that, it would be the outer labias as well. So it really depends on how the female is shaped and if they have more predominant inner or outer labias, what's going to work best for them to get that stimulation, depending on what they want. It's always fun when the partners come in together. It's nice because they're supporting each other. They're there together. They're going through this like exploring and discovering each other kind of thing. Yeah, so I actually get to sit down with clients a lot of times if they are and ask them specific questions. It's like, what do you like? What do you like? What are you going for? What do you want to happen? The awkward part's when it's like, okay, now let me see your junk and see what we can do.
Right.
You can't tell what we can or cannot do on each client until you know what you're working with.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That just makes sense.
Right.
Sense there.
Yeah, man. Wow. I've really never thought about it from that point of view. You've got a lot of assessment going on with what you do.
Yeah. My main goal is to make the client happy. I don't want to do something on them that they're like, yeah, I got this done. Then I took it out, a couple months later because it wasn't doing anything for me. I don't want to waste their time, their nerve, their money, or their body healing something.
Right. Sure.
Something that's not going to work for them. But over the years, I've had great success. It's actually been funny. I've received flowers, thank you cards, edible arrangements, cherries, berries.
That's awesome, man.
All kinds of stuff from clients, thanking me for, revitalizing their sex life.
Cool, man. That's an important thing for people. I think that we've been given this idea that at a certain age or something that like you're just not supposed to have sex and enjoy yourself anymore. And it's
correct. Yeah.
And it's like I think we're getting to the point where, we're living longer and people are finding that, there is like, there's life after your kids leave the home. There's life after retirement, and it should be enjoyed. And sex is one of those things that, whatever you believe in, God, or if you're atheist or whatever, but it's something that we've been given as human beings to enjoy. And that's a good thing, man. And what you're doing, I think, is great. I mean, it's just not something that I don't think most people think about. When they think about piercings and stuff, they're just like, oh, that's an odd thing, And it's like, no, well, there's different reasons for people doing it. And you need to, it's just, it's something that most people aren't educated on.
Right. And it's like, I have a lot of clients still come in, especially couples. They're like, this is the first time we've ever been in a tattoo studio. Oh my God.
Right.
We would never come here, blah, 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 blah. And then they realize that it's not a scary place. It's not like the old, 50s, 60s tattoo parlor, biker kind of thing. It's actually, we're artists and we're all very professional in what we do. And there is a goal in what we're trying to do, which is either art or adorning, making you beautiful, or, enhancing your life in some way.
My dad at the age of 70 got a tattoo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude. Fantastic. And it's like, it's big, man. It takes up his entire upper arm. It's like a partial sleeve.
Wow.
Yeah. He was just, and my dad is one of the most right-wing, conservative guys you'll ever meet, and gave me shit. Never said anything, but I know he wasn't happy when I started getting tattoos, and then, fast forward 30 years and now, he's got a tattoo. I think it's great, man. It's like, fuck yeah, dude. Yeah. He found something that he wanted to, express, and he did. And I think it's great, man.
It's great how the acceptance has gotten better. And I hate to say it because a lot of the TV shows and stuff like that annoy us on a daily basis because people think they can come in and get a sleeve in 45 minutes. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it doesn't work that way. But it has helped our industry a lot as far as acceptance. I come from a family that is very conservative. My grandfather was a primitive Baptist preacher. Mm-hmm. My dad was never into the tattoo piercing industry and stuff like that. And then especially when I started performing, and then especially when I started doing sideshow, because pretty much if I'm not needling people at the studio, I am needling myself on stage. So my dad was not jazzed about it.
Sure.
But as it has gone along and he's able to actually meet people and come into the studio and meet the people that I work with, my dad realizes that he's not into it, but there's nothing wrong with it.
That's cool.
Right. It's not bad. We're not, there's too many people that feel like that those of us in this industry, whether it be the body modification industry or certain specific areas of sideshow, think that we are self-harming, that we are mutilating ourselves.
Right.
And that is not what it is at all. It is just another art form. It's just expression.
Sure.
Exactly. So before we get into that side of it, I do want to ask one question, or I guess maybe two. What's the most painful? I mean, I know everybody's got a different gauge, but generally speaking, what would be the most on any body part, not necessarily on your junk, but what would be the most painful? Because I'm very curious what that would be.
As far as there's different levels of it, because you have to think about the nerve endings in the human body.
Right.
And you also have to think whether it's a male or female.
Yeah.
And that's just because females have a higher tolerance for pain. They don't know it 9 times out of 10 and tend to freak out. But even once we're done, they always go, oh, okay, that was easy.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you guys have babies. Men could not,
Exactly.
Men freak out about, kidney stones, which, are painful in their own right. But, it would be like us, trying to pee out a bowling ball.
Pretty much.
It's not going to happen,
Exactly. As far as facial piercings go, something like your cheeks, dahlias, anything that's going to go close to that cheek muscle, mouth area, medusa, and it's not getting it done necessarily. It's the healing process. That's where tattoos and piercings are different. With tattoos, it's getting the tattoo that sucks. Healing it is easy.
Right.
Getting a piercing is easy. Healing it is the hard part. Cheeks take about a year to heal. You're going to be swollen for about 4 months.
Damn.
So it's a lot of discomfort with eating and speaking and talking and things of that nature. So as far as facial, I would definitely say cheeks or dahlias, which are going to be the corners, very corners of the mouth. As far as genitals go, for a female, it's going to be your vulvas or Christina, which is the very outer top of the mound on a girl, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's because of clothing, rub, and nerve sensitivity. Right. There's a lot of nerve endings there that you don't realize that are there. So they kind of suck in there. For a male, it's definitely going to be an apodrabia or an ampelang. Basically, those are going to go clear through the head, vertical and horizontal.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So those are doozies. Those are ones that you're going to be sore. And I had a dude completely bite through. He put his wallet in his mouth when I did his apodrabia. Bit so hard that he bit through his driver's license and 2 credit cards.
Oh shit!
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. I got my nostril pierced, and that fucking hurt, man. I got a lot of
nostril.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, a nostril is an achy, sharp pain. It is a very awkward sensation.
Yeah.
Because of that weird achiness that comes along with it.
Oh, I was crying like a baby, man. It was like that tear duct was just like, you know.
Those nerve endings are connected to your tear duct. So if we do nostrils, septums, high nostrils, nasal langs, anything like that, you're going to water like crazy. It's uncontrollable. There's nothing you can do about it. It's going to happen.
Yeah. And that one took a long time to heal. Now that I think about it, it took a while. I probably didn't do the best maintenance, though. I mean, I was pretty young.
And that's the thing. It's aftercare, and getting proper aftercare is very difficult right now because a lot of people rely on Google and YouTube way too much. And for example, with me, I don't let my clients take videos anymore when they're getting piercings done, because that's when the drama queens come out. That's when people overact because they're acting. They're doing a TikTok. They're doing, a Snapchat. They're doing some kind of thing to show off.
Yeah.
But the only things that tend to be out there as far as information right now is information that's from like the 90s, and people are trying to talk about an industry that they don't actually work in, and you make recommendations when, I had my nostril pierced, so you should take care of it this way. And it's improper aftercare.
Sure.
And with piercings, they take longer to heal. It's not like a tattoo. In 2 to 3 weeks, you're fine. A nostril can take 5 to 6 months to heal. A navel takes 9 months to heal. So you have to be consistent with this aftercare.
Right.
So it's actually going to heal proper. And most people don't have the patience.
Yeah,
sure.
And I know a lot of the piercers now also don't want people to take images while they're doing it, because they don't want people to try and do it at home.
Exactly.
Try to replicate the process and do it at home, because, because that's going to end in disaster, 19 times out of 10, exactly. That's just going to be, just like don't give yourself a tattoo if you don't know how to give tattoos.
Exactly.
That's just a bad idea. So,
because what they're using typically is safety pins, sewing needles, whatever they can get their hands on. Or they can try to order stuff off of eBay or Amazon, and they're getting stuff that's from overseas. And there's a weird thing in the United States that drives me crazy. You can't manufacture low-grade metals or products in the United States, but you can import them. So a lot of the stuff these kids are getting from Hot Topic or online, they are coming from China, Korea, Taiwan. They're mass-produced, and they're low-grade metals. And a lot of people don't realize that you can get blood poisoning from a low-grade metal and die.
Yeah.
So these kids can actually just try to do a nostril piercing on themselves, use a low-grade metal, have a severe reaction, and not understand why, and then it just escalates from there until it's at the point of, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And that's not...
That's good. That's good information right there.
That is good. Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of good information, and we appreciate you sharing all that with us.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me share.
And where is it again? Where's your shop located? What's the name of it, so that people can go and especially once we get past all of this restrictions from COVID and we get past that, we can come and get.
I work for Golden Spiral Studios in Greensboro, North Carolina. We're downtown Greensboro area in the Arts District, Arts and Entertainment area. But it's a studio that's been there for, at the current location, 13 years. They were at another location for about 5 years. But yeah, I'm very happy to be with the crew that I'm with right now, because they're all people that have been in the industry a long time.
Awesome.
Everyone is very specific to their talent, very open with that. So if we have clients come in wanting to get a specific type of piece done or, piercing done, and we can't accommodate it, we're honest. We'll be like, you don't want to talk to me, you want to talk to this person.
That's cool.
So that's our main goal, is to accommodate each client for their need and what they're wanting to have done.
That's great. Any reputable place that is doing things like tattoo work, like piercing, something that is with you and that is, it should be taken seriously, and you should treat it like that. I've always told people that, do your research when you're going somewhere to get some work done. Pay a lot of money and go to somebody good.
Oh, yeah.
Do your research.
Exactly. It's going to be there forever.
Yeah.
I work with some phenomenal artists. I hope it's okay if I drop some names, because I'm
go ahead.
That I work with. I work for Sean Carey. He's the owner of the studio. One of the most amazing traditional Japanese artists out there. I also have Zach Crispo with us. He does very realistic type pieces, and it's amazing how quickly he can get done. There's Luke Blegan as well, who does hyper realism and things of that nature. We've got some great up and comings that also have started with us, Marcus Lee and Sierra Jacobs, doing pointillism, like that really tedious pointillism dot work and hash mark type stuff that makes these beautiful illustrations, and it's all floral type stuff. So we have a great diverse group of people with us. I think there's 9 of us at the studio right now.
That's a big studio. That's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
They've been in it for a while and working circuits of conventions and stuff like that. Everyone's kind of on a weird hold right now.
Right.
We can't work conventions right now as well, which is kind of sucks.
Hey man, did I ever tell you about this recent thing that happened to me? I was driving around in the country and it was just after dusk. So there's a little bit of light still coming on out of the sky, but it was mostly dark. I saw this black school bus.
I don't think I've ever heard this.
Okay, so I saw this black school bus. All the windows were tinted and it started following me for about 15 minutes.
Whoa, no.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I was at work. I was making deliveries and I just kept making my deliveries, and like it would even stop and wait for me. And but it was never close enough to where I could see it or anything, but it was following me, man.
Wow. Dang.
That's just an example of another really weird story that happened to me and that could have happened to you. You don't have to have a UFO encounter. You don't have to have seen the ghost of your grandmother. You don't have to know what Bigfoot smells like to have had a weird story. Basically, what we're saying is weird covers a lot of ground here on the What's Your Weird Story podcast. And we love hearing all of your stories, whether they're spooky, they're funny, they're bizarre, or they're just short, sweet, and unexplained. Kind of like our podcast. Now that you've fully informed us about piercing other people, you can tell us about piercing yourself in public.
It's been a wonderful crossover. I've been doing burlesque for years. I was with Glitter Bomb Burlesque. It was me and my bestest, Wee D. Williams. We were known for doing duets, androgynous type stuff. I was always interested in the circus and sideshow and that type of thing. So we were trying to incorporate some stuff of what we would do, but with traditional burlesque, it's very difficult. I'm not being shitty to traditional burlesque girls. Please do not get me wrong. But they kind of snubbed their noses at us with what we were doing. So over time, things kind of transitioned. My burlesque partner is in a wonderful band now. It's Bob Fleming and the Canberra Iron Company. And then I ended up meeting everyone with the Cutthroat Freak Show. Saw what they were doing and was like, okay, there is a group out there that's doing fun stuff and I don't have to feel weird about it or awkward about it, and let's just try and see what's up. And I've always played with needles, so that's where I went with it.
Cool.
I try to do something. My whole goal is to make burlesque creepy and sideshow pretty.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Something a little bit different with it. It can be very interesting as far as doing needling because some places are really into it. The crowds are always into it. It's the venues
Right.
that have a problem.
Sure.
Because there's certain places, and it's possible that I do it intentionally. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Place needles pre-show, so as when I pull them out on stage, I will automatically start bleeding. And some places don't like it when you get blood all over their stage.
Sure.
Right.
So there's a little bit of precaution there, especially now with all that has happened. That makes me a little bit nervous with future performances, having to go that extra mile, barriers and such, because I don't want to get people freaked out about blood or contamination or anything like that. But it's always kind of interesting to see people's reactions and stuff. We've done a few of the online shows, but it's very different not having the crowd there to get all gassy and freaked out.
Right. Yeah, that's got to be different. That's like doing stand-up comedy with no crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know? or you know, playing in a band. And
right.
I mean, I guess if you're playing in a band, it's definitely different, but it's less. Because that'd seem more like a practice rather than a performance, I suppose. But
right.
But yeah, you definitely you're definitely going for that feedback of the right. I mean, so it makes a lot of sense.
110%. I also go for the weirder place, the more shock value type thing. So I'm always trying to, even on stage, like, okay, I'm going to pierce here instead or there instead. And I've had moments of regret of, oh my God, that hurt like fuck. I will never do it again.
Yeah.
Some places are worth it.
Is it harder to pierce yourself? Does it hurt more? I mean, is that a thing or not?
And it's actually funny because when I deal with my clients, typically, I don't mean to sound like a weirdo here, but for me, no.
This place is absolutely perfect to sound like a weirdo, so don't worry about that.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because there's certain areas that I got to try to pierce for the first time, maybe on stage, and you get a very hard adrenaline rush and very excited about it. So it's like, oh, I want to do that again.
Right.
Fun.
Sure.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah. There's only been one that I will still do. I have no problem with that. But that dinero, that cheddar's got to be right for it, which is piercing my mouth shut.
Pierce your mouth shut. Oh wow!
Piercing my mouth shut.
So one through the top lip, one through the bottom lip. Is that what you do?
Basically, if you take the divot right under your nose, pull that forward and grab your bottom lip and pull them forward and pierce them together.
Wow! Oh man!
Yeah.
I've seen performances where people have like sewn that shut. Yeah. And of course, there's also, I can't remember, she was a performance artist, she was a burlesque and dancer, I think she did adult films back in like the 70s or 80s.
Annie Sprinkles, right? Is that her name?
Yeah, I think that was it.
I know who you are,
She sewed her vagina shut as part of performance.
Don't ask me how I know that, but I think that's who it was.
Yes. I learned all about that in my various art history classes.
Yeah,
and also on my own individual research while I was there in college.
I think I learned it from you, probably.
Yeah, maybe. So. But yeah, that always was. There's
a trick to that one. I'm just not going to divulge it to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's yeah, exactly. Yeah, and but that one is, of course, that just symbolically, that's incredibly powerful. But as far as like just visually and that just seems like it would be painful, I guess. But
if only I had venues to be able to perform it at, that's not a problem.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you're definitely not going to find too many of those down in the South, I think.
No. Yeah, we have weird laws down on this side of the world. you have to be very careful with what you do. Virginia, West Virginia is one of those places. Apparently, if you have boobs and booze together, then just mayhem and chaos is going to happen. They don't allow it. But you can reserve your own venue, like a private party kind of thing, have it be BYOB, and you can get bucket naked and do whatever you want to do.
Huh. There's other places. I think that was at one point. I believe North Carolina was like that, where boobs and booze were okay,
right,
within reason. But then a fully naked, if that was allowed, then, or maybe I'm thinking of Virginia. I can't remember. One of them, or maybe it was South Carolina. It's been a long time since I learned.
Yeah, North Carolina for a while, you could have boobs and booze, but you couldn't get fully naked and do like weird stuff unless it was an oxygen bar.
An oxygen bar.
Yeah, so in bars where you do and you can breathe on the full oxygen tanks or have water drink. They do these like spritzers and stuff like that. So as long as there's no alcohol involved, you can get just fucking crazy with Cheese Whiz here.
Wow. No, that's odd.
That is weird, man.
It's pretty weird. Virginia, you can't show your butt cleft. That's a big deal.
Huh.
My former burlesque partner.
How do plumbers exist there?
Exactly. Never thought about it that way. Oh, we could have used that.
I'm not gonna lie. I've probably done that in Virginia and transgressed without even my knowledge.
Not even known, man.
Yeah.
I think
had to sign a contract saying I would not show my butt cleft. The ALE made me sign a contract in Virginia that I would not show my butt cleft.
That is so strange.
I think I don't know if it's North Carolina or if it's Oklahoma or maybe it's both. I can't remember, but one of them was at the topless bars that the dancers had to like basically paint over their nipples with clear acrylic.
Yep. It's not a thing anymore. Public nudity is actually legalized now. You can be out on the street and have your shirt off, and it's not a big deal. Yep. So we legalized that, and we legalized weed here the last couple of years. So
wow.
Yeah. Yep.
That's amazing. Maybe I should move back.
just another couple of reasons.
North Carolina.
That's funny. Crazy. Are you familiar with the Jenna Torturers? I ask everybody that is involved in the sideshow world. Do you ever heard of the Jenna Torturers? They were a band that was around. It was a band, but they would also do, these really elaborate, like sideshow type things while they're playing music. And, gosh, they toured around. I know they toured around the South a lot in the 90s because I lived in Florida at that time, and they were a pretty big deal. But they did that. And then there was another band. I've actually talked to Tron about the Impotent Sea Snakes. They owned a venue in Atlanta called the Masquerade, which is a pretty big place where bands would come through. But they were banned in like every state. Like they couldn't perform anywhere because of what you were talking about, the regulations and stuff. They would show up and there's like 12 people on stage. Piercing each other and shooting flames and all kinds of stuff. So
I wish I had come across those cats.
Yeah. That was I'm gonna say Jenna Torturers were around in the I think definitely the early 90s, probably the 80s also. And
they were late 80s, early 90s for sure, because I remember when I was working in record stores in the early mid 90s. Yeah, that I remember seeing their CDs and stuff. So
she was real pretty. She was a female fronted band. I never listened to their music. I would assume it was metal or something.
I think it was more like kind of like industrial, like skinny puppy, stuff like that. Because that went along with a lot of sense. Because it was they were like they were piercing. They were kind of some BDSM kind of stuff, just that, I mean, you can kind of get that with the name of the band, but But yeah, they were a spectacle, and they were pretty big. But you could a lot of places you just would not see them play because they did.
Well, that and like the Jim Rose circus, that was big when we were growing up too. So, and of course, the circus sideshows go back, hundreds and hundreds of years. So.
That's very cool. All right. Well, so have you got any any crazy stories that happened besides the learning of where not to pierce yourself? Have you had any kind of crazy stories from your performance side of your life?
Absolutely. I was doing a show in Charlotte at the Skylark. I'd been playing with using curved needles versus straight needles. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of the burlesque girls use the big capes that have the sticks, so they have these big wings and things.
Uh-huh.
So I have this act where I have the big sticks with the wings, but the point is for me to needle the wings to my arms. So they're already attached to me. My arms are the sticks.
Wow.
And I'm using these curved needles instead of straight needles. And I was so proud. They were so pretty and sparkly and matched my costume so well. I'm on stage. I pull my arm out, my left arm out, to hook it to the upper part of my arm, which is where near my bicep is at. So I get 2 hooks in, no problem. Do the other side to get 2 hooks in, so it looks nice and even. Go to prep the fabric to put the 3rd hook in, and I pierce it completely through the underside, through the muscle, under that muscle.
What do you do?
And I immediately realized that that's not correct and that's not good, and but I still have to finish the act. So I finished the act and put the other 6 needles in and do all the needles and finish the act. And as I'm walking off stage, I'm like, I am totally bleeding all over the floor, and I'm just dripping my way back to the dressing room to take them out. And as soon as I take the needle out, that's when it's just like, oh shit, all right, and here we go. So it's just bleeding. That's when I feel bad that I'm bleeding all over a venue, but thankfully it's a venue I've performed at before, and no folks, they're more worried about me than the floor or anything like that, which is good. But yeah, I no longer use curved needles for that particular act.
Yeah.
Because apparently I get too excited and just went right through that muscle.
Wow.
Oh man, that's just...
Yeah.
How
so for the next icing it, and massaging the tissue, because if you puncture through a muscle, you can actually cause atrophy, so the muscle won't work proper.
Sure.
And that's my bicep.
Oh wow, that would have been awful.
Right. And I'm a piercer, and I need my arms to work and my hands to work and all that good stuff. So yeah. We just revised that.
How much time do you need to recover between shows?
That's a good question. Sometimes more time than I give myself. Because there's a lot of times where I'm doing stuff back to back to back. But it's part of it.
And you're like re-piercing those piercings?
You just kind of move a little hair over. Just move like or whatnot. Try to same visual look to it, but just go a little bit below or in between and that type of thing. I needle my butt cheeks. That's the hardest part to deal with typically the next day after multiple days of doing it.
I imagine.
Well, yeah.
Sitting's weird. Yeah. And then if you have to drive to the next show, that's sitting.
Yeah, no kidding. So sanitation's like really important probably for you, I'd imagine.
Oh, absolutely. I have a lot of antibacterial soap in my life.
Right.
A lot of salt treatments and antibacterial soap in my life. I try to prep areas before I do stuff. Some of the acts that I do, the needles are preloaded into my arms, so I'm not picking them up off the floor or anything like that. So I cut out cross-contamination and stuff.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Have you done any kind of like the suspension work?
Yes, I have. It's been many years since I've done any suspension, and the suspension I have done has not been with performance per se.
Okay.
It's all been with the body modification industry. So it's been with There was a group I used to work with called Holdfast in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Andy McDowell, he's in Minneapolis now. But I've done some work with him with doing suspensions just for my own personal, I wanted to do it and play with it and stuff like that. But I haven't had too much opportunity with like flesh hooks or suspension with Sideshow. I can have no problem with it. But yeah.
I remember as a very little kid seeing the movie The Man Called Horse.
Yeah.
And part of that, famously, part of that is where he goes through suspension, and they, and I don't know if he really did it or not, but like, it was one of those things as a little kid that really was like, what the fuck, know, and then, and then I don't know if I asked my dad or somebody, but somebody explained to me like this was part of their, tradition, and it was kind of a spiritual thing, and like, wow.
Yeah, like. I've heard stories about that too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Part of it for me was not only the industry that I was in, but my grandfather was full-blooded Cherokee Indian. So I had heard of the Sundance and stuff like that prior. So it was something that I kind of wanted to be able to explore, seeing how I was in an industry where I had access to it and had a group of friends that I trust and had been doing it for a long time. And it was like, let me experience something that I know I have had past family members do and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And I was also very insecure and stuff like that for a while.
Sure.
As far as like, I want to see the spiritual side of it and whatnot. Right. I'm not going to lie. Not that I didn't enjoy it, not that I did not get a lot of experience from it and have great moments with it with people I was working with. I did not have an out-of-body experience.
Right.
I did not see gods, deities, anything like that. But it's definitely an experience. But don't go into it thinking that you're going to have some major spiritual, overwhelming epiphany in your life from doing it, because I've never had that happen.
Right.
Yeah. That's I would imagine that's kind of an exception. Of course, I don't know, maybe there's some kind of other preparation more that you would have to go into, but then again, it may just be that it did take, some people just don't have certain reactions to whatever, and it's your body is creating that kind of, that chemical storm, to get you to that out of body kind of experience. So,
yeah. And the reason I say that is there are a lot of people in my industry that promote it that way, that it's going to be this major life-changing thing, and for 80% of the people it's not. It's a wonderful experience, don't get me wrong, but you're not going to see God.
right
yeah Take DMT if you want to see God.
Good answer.
As I'm told.
Yes.
Oh man. Yeah, I had heard somebody had told me that in Native American culture, I've heard stories about that's how you would become a brave. It was a rite of passage.
Yeah.
And then I've also heard that you also would mourn someone's passing by hanging. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I heard. So, but yeah, it's intense, man. I mean, I'm kind of into that kind of, I'm not, into hanging or anything like that, but I'm into the folklore of putting your body in very uncomfortable situations and to see what the mind can do and to see what you can overcome. And so that's fascinating. It's definitely, I get like, back when they were practicing that kind of stuff, they had a whole different, concept of life. And it was, something that was passed down to them for generations, and they had probably a different way of looking at it. But you look at it now and you're like, holy shit, man. Like,
I would imagine that they look at it like holy shit, but then at the same time they do it because it was part of their culture, and in many cases still is, or something like that, is part of a culture that is, for outsiders, is so extreme and so bizarre
Right.
That,
yes.
To us, it'd be like, what the hell? What are they thinking?
Well, it's like
whereas for them, it's just like, well, this is part of our tradition. This is part of our belief. This is part of what we do. This is absolutely normal.
Right.
And
it's right. It's like
because
it's like the Japanese version. Like it's like harikari in Japan.
Yeah.
We look at that as from Westerners' eyes and think, well, why the fuck would you do that? Why would you commit suicide like that? But in their culture, it's totally acceptable, and it's a way for them to redeem themselves.
Yeah, it's honor.
Yeah. It's honor,
There's an origin to almost every piercing that we do. And it's multicultural. It's not just, it didn't come from one place, it come from multiple places.
Right.
I was always fascinated with the Mayans. That's kind of how I got into modification, actually, was stretching my ears. Because I got really into Mayans, and that culture, piercings were very predominant. They were a social standing, they were status, much in the same way with India as well. Right. But there are many cultures out there that piercings are every day. It's what you do at a certain age,
right?
And to get your status in your,
Yeah, like look at the community. African, the neck stretching. What a weird thing, right? I mean, we look at that. I look at that, and I go, "Wow, what does that mean?" But in their culture, it's a status thing. Yeah, it's like
status and beauty.
Beautiful.
Exactly,
they consider it beautiful.
Exactly.
Have a elongated neck. It's beautiful. It's just the same with the Chinese with feet binding and stuff like that. Having super tiny feet.
That's right.
It's a beautiful thing to do. No matter how painful and excruciating it was to do it. There are a lot of things that have expanded to today, as far as like waist binding and things of that nature, which is very Victorian. To the tinier your waist, the prettier you were, and things of that nature.
Right.
Of course, it's like with the African culture, the labrae piercing. Here we do a small little little piercing underneath your lip, but in Africa, you're going to stretch it. You want a plate in it. You want at least a 3 to 4 inch plate to be beautiful. There.
Yeah. Right.
Of course, a lot of the traditional piercings, those older ones with like the feet bindings, and the ones that are towards women, a lot of that is also kind of about control and about kind of like ownership and like kind of stuff like that, where unfortunately, but it is part of the tradition, it's part of the culture, it's part of what's come up, but still, it's fascinating all around. So, it's, just think about how strange somebody would find it that, here's this group of people that pretend that this little bit of, that pretend to be, here's this huge number of people, this giant group of people who pretend to be cannibals, and by eating a piece of bread that they pretend is a body, and by drinking grape juice that they pretend is blood. Yeah. That's really strange. That is a really, really strange thing, but that's what it is. It's all about the symbolism of it. It's all about what's been put into it. And so.
Yeah, I enjoy the parts that aren't necessarily about beautification. It's like the Mayans, they stretched their ears because they thought that they could hear the gods. They thought they could hear people talking about them behind their backs, because it would make their ears bigger, and it would amplify, and they could hear better. But they thought the bigger their ears, the closer they would get to God.
Wow. Yeah. That's
cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. I love it.
Yep.
Now we're stretching our ears so we can hear the music better.
Right. I'm just trying to hear music these days, man. My wife tells me I'm going deaf, so.
Barry, as many bands you played in, and
I know, man,
shows that you did, and 'cause Barry was an audio. He was an all around band guy, like whatever in the music industry. He toured in bands and played on stage. He did sound off stage and the side and managed, and he's done all of that basically. Anything you can do in the music industry, pretty much Barry's done it. And so I don't doubt that your ears are have shot, if not
playing
more.
Playing drums at 12. That's when it started. 12 years old. so a gunshot, every second. I don't doubt I'm losing some hearing, but anyway.
I can understand.
Yeah.
I did merch for bands from like 2009 till about 2016. I was a merch manager for Farmageddon Records for many years.
Okay.
Worked a lot of festivals. Did merch for Yellow Wolf and Hillbilly Casino. So it becomes a thing where it's like, I'm sorry, I'm deaf. It's because of my occupation. I can't help it.
Right. Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why I got out of it, honestly, because I felt like I was doing more harm than good at that point.
Right.
And my hearing is important to me, but
right.
And I'm in my mid 40s, so it's like it's gonna happen. This is when it starts to decline. So, but
same here.
Yeah. But no, I mean we love these types of stories because Adam and I with music we both toured a lot, and I toured for years, and so there's so much camaraderie in that world, and sort of touring like a gypsy. You know what I mean? Like there's just a thing that happens to you when you're out and you're performing for people, you're in front of people. You have it's for lack of a better term, it's kind of magical. What transpires from night to night with different crowds, and how you can feed off of that, and how you start learning the difference between what kind of energy this crowd is giving you, and that is gonna that's gonna determine what you're gonna do in response. It's great. It's just we love this kind of stuff. So
we miss it really bad.
I know.
I'm the lucky one actually during this quarantine, because with me predominantly working at the studio, I've been allowed to go back to work, but everyone else that's here with us, Jeremy Cutthroat, Whitey Alabaster, Scarlet Storm, we can't perform. We can't really go on the road right now. So we miss that so much, and it's not the same when you're trying to do a virtual show. You're trying to capture that, and you hope you're capturing it for the person that's viewing it. But on this end of it, it's very difficult.
Sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. To me, it would seem like it's almost like you're playing in front of a mirror, like you're a little kid pretending, because you're not getting the actual feedback and the actual, energy. And there's something really to be said about that, like Barry said.
Yes. I feel bad for the performers that are actually like alone. Yeah. We all feel very lucky that we got quarantined together.
Right. Yep.
It was a house full of clowns, so what's going to happen? Right.
Yeah, which brings up a good point. It's important for people to stay in touch with each other, and reach out. We've talked about that a little bit on last week's episode. We need to when this was recorded, last week's episode, but stay in touch with your friends, and this is a time when you need to be connected with people. We're pack animals, and we need each other. So, keep your head up and stay focused.
Use what we have.
Right.
Social media, all that. Stay connected.
Exactly.
Yeah, because we have a lot more options and ability to stay connected than we used to, where we just had a plug in the wall telephone and
Can you imagine if this happened in 1992? This happened in 92.
Yep.
Well, but here's the thing. Essentially, this happened in like 1919 with the Spanish flu.
Oh yeah.
And they've gone back and found like people's diaries and stuff, and it's basically the same thing that everybody's complaining about. They've read all their books, they're totally bored of everything that they've done, and they're tired of being around the people that they're around. But hey, they're alive, and that was a lot worse, a lot scarier, because we didn't have the technology and knowledge that we do now.
Right.
So
if you got it, you were pretty much dead. So
yeah. But I would think in 92 there would be a lot of people, a lot of Nintendo playing. Old school NES, man.
Right.
Speed racing through Zelda and Mario Kart.
Right.
Or Mario, not even Mario Kart, dude.
Right.
So.
Right.
You have that you build up that callus on your thumb from the old square rectangular controller,
Right.
So
Oh wow. Good stuff.
Yeah. Well, Wendy, that was do you have, first of all, before we close out, do you have anything else for us? Because what you've given us has been fantastic.
It's great.
Nothing that I can think of off the top of my head.
No worries. Well, that was...
I don't have to promote. I'll be at Golden Spiral every day, Wednesdays and Sundays from noon to 6. I'm happy to adorn you.
Good. Yeah. Right. Go see Wendy.
Tell them you're from Weirdsville, and So that's the code word. I don't know what it means, but it's something. So. But yeah, thanks for sharing all that. That was great, very informative, really cool. And of course, anytime anytime you guys have any stories or whatever you want to share, or just get a hold of us, and we have an open door policy. Jeremy and Scarlett, they know it. They've been back a few times, and we love all you guys there as part of the Cutthroat and Thunder Snow Cone crowd, because you guys really been supportive of us, and we really appreciate it. And
absolutely.
Thank you very much. Love what you're doing.
We want you to know that. So, but yeah,
absolutely.
Well, cool deal. Hey everybody, you're listening to the What's Your Weird Story podcast. You probably knew that already because you're listening or downloaded to the episode off of your iTunes or your Spotify or whatever place you get your podcast from. We want to thank you for listening. We also want to remind you to like us, follow us, subscribe to us, make sure that you get your new podcast episode every week. We'd also like to ask you to rate and review so that we can grow our audience, we can have more friends, we can have more stories. So thanks for listening to What's Your Weird Story. Wendy, Queen Monkey, thank you. That was awesome.
Very educational. And
absolutely.
It was really, you don't think about all the things that you go through, when you have a job like that. And she did a great job of really laying that out for us. It's been a while since I've had something pierced. Yeah, it was really cool. And I think it's a great thing, the service that she provides, because it's not just, piercing. It's also a little bit of, psychologist and a friendly ear to bend. And it's cool. It was a nice look into her life. Yeah.
Got that bartender kind of aspect.
Exactly.
To it, where you very much have an intimate relationship with a piercer,
right.
or a tattoo artist, but
right.
more so with the piercer,
especially
if you're getting anything below the belt.
For sure.
But that's really cool. So if you are in the Greensboro, North Carolina area, and you want to get your junk pierced or any other body part pierced, you can go to the Golden Spiral Studio downtown. That's where you'll find Wendy, aka Queen Monkey, down there piercing away, and that would be really cool. Just tell her that we sent you.
Yeah,
tell her you're from Weirdsville.
Absolutely, and hopefully they can get back on the road where she can, continue doing her burlesque show, and we're all hoping for the ability for entertainment to come back into our lives in the live setting. So, looking forward to that.
Yeah, we will get there. It's just going to take, it's going to be a little time. So, just remember to get out there when you're out there in the real world. Wear a mask. Do all the personal. Keep yourself safe. Safety first. I know a lot of people don't like wearing a mask. But, it's not just about you. It's about everybody else.
Yeah.
We've got to do this for the entirety of Weirdsville and for the world.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's, because we are, despite our many differences, we are all one, we're one world. We're one people. We're all the same. We all bitch and complain, but we're all the same. So
That's right. That's right.
So anyway, also, I want, before we leave, Barry, I wanted to drop a few things.
Okay.
Some congratulatory messages to my friends to Future Islands, who dropped a really cool new single a couple weeks back called For Sure. And it's got a really cool video as well. You can find that on YouTube or wherever.
Cool.
And you can find For Sure on all the music platforms, Spotify and iTunes and all that stuff. And it's really cool. If you like Future Islands, it's right there in your league. If you aren't familiar with Future Islands, go check them out. They've got a really cool kind of soulful, new wavy, dancey style, but a lot of soul. And Sam's got some really incredible lyrics, and he always has. Back when we were doing Art Lord and stuff. But good stuff from a great band that I was at one point part of long ago in a different life, and also from Future Islands, William Cashin, who's the bass player, but also just little William to me. He has released his first solo album, and it's an instrumental album. It's called Postcard Music, and you can get that you can get the physical media copies, or you can find it on digitally on all your platforms and everything. It's really cool. It's very ambient, it's very atmospheric, it's very meditative. So if you're into stuff like that, it's definitely a good soundtrack to pick up and listen to, because it's super chill.
Cool.
And good to have in the background while you're meditating, or maybe working on art or something of that nature, but really fantastic. And I just want to congratulate my boys on all their work for getting that out, because it's a difficult time now to release new music and new things, because musicians can't tour. Obviously, we just like our friends the Freaks can't tour, and that's their livelihoods. So it's difficult. So if you can help them out as well by buying digital copies or real world copies of their music, that's cool. And hey, you know what? Speaking of which, Barry, we have a Patreon live now.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, if you guys enjoy the show and you feel it in your heart that you'd like to contribute something financially, it doesn't have to be very much, but we put a lot of work into this, and it's just nice to get a little bit of something to help sort of, propel the wheel down the road. And we've got extra content that we're giving to our Patreon members.
Yeah. There's different platforms. There's a $2 platform. That's thank you. We appreciate your support. There's a $5 platform, and that's the Sticker Club. You get our thanks and eternal gratitude, plus you get some cool stickers sent to you in the mail. And then there's also I believe it's a $12 platform. And the $12 platform is you get the stickers, our eternal gratitude. You get the bonus audio content. And you'll get your name shouted out as a patron and elder of Weirdsville at the end of every show.
Very cool.
So I guess it's Patreon / What's Your Weird Story without the apostrophe and the question mark, because they wouldn't let us have that. But yeah, check it out if you feel generous and you feel like you want to support financially the show. That's awesome. We also, if you want to support the show by sharing it with your friends, please do share it with your enemies. If you would, we'd love it if you would go and rate us. Give us top ratings on wherever you listen to your episodes. Give us top ratings and leave us a review. I know iTunes especially, reviews are very helpful there, and ratings as well. But reviews are really helpful because those pop up and help people see us and Weirdsville to grow by leaps and bounds. So if you're on iTunes or you got an account and you got a little bit of time, just go there and say, "Great show. We love these guys," whatever. And we would appreciate that, and we'll read. Of course, we'll read your review there on an episode, a future episode, like we've done in the past. It's been a while since we've got a review, but that's okay. So yeah, there's lots of things going on.
Yeah,
I guess.
Absolutely, and regardless, this will continue to be free, no of charge. So we appreciate anybody listening, and again, we couldn't do it without you guys, and we couldn't do it without your stories. The ultimate support is being on the show and sharing your stories. So lots of cool stuff coming up next week.
we have Mandy, who is calling in from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and has a haunted bar and restaurant, and that is spooky.
It is a wild one. It's a wild ride.
Yeah, it's awesome. So check that out. In the meantime, go down to Greensboro, get your junk pierced, send us a picture, maybe. Or not, whatever. I guess I backtracked that a little bit. I mean, I'm open for it if you want to. That's totally cool. I got no problems with it. I'm not asking for it particularly well. But anyway, hey, until whatever, I got to get us out of here. Hey, everybody, have a great week. Be safe.
Be weird.
As always, if you have a weird story, we want to hear it.
If you have a lot of them, we want to hear them all.
We can't do this podcast without your invaluable contributions.
Whether it's sharing your stories,
listening,
rating,
and spreading the word about the podcast. Thanks for listening. Until next time, be safe.
Be weird.
The stories presented on the What's Your Weird Story podcast are, to our knowledge,